electrons. I'm more gravity. Let's play chess. So I finished this chess game just a few minutes ago, and I won with the white pieces. Let's take a look at how the game went. So this was strange. e4, e5, c3. What are you doing? Frankly, I kind of got myself lost in a c3 Sicilian and Alapin Sicilian that just wasn't there. A chess hallucination almost. No, yeah, and I was thinking about playing a lot of my games against the Sicilian with the Alapin Sicilian as I have in the past. More recently, definitely more recently, I've been playing a lot with c4, and that changes things into the English opening instead. So I kind of had that on my mind, and my opponent made uh, they response to e4. So I I still had it on my mind, and I played c3, even though their response to e4 was e5 and not c5. So we a little bit of goofiness there. People make mistakes or whatever. Plus, it's also just fun. This is now, black to make their second move, and this is a position I have not played before. Knight c6, pawn to d4, exchanges on d4, and then bishop b4, bishop b4 check. Maybe a little bit optimistic. On the other hand, if I block with bishop to d2, then there's exchange. Yeah, that's what happened in the game, and I'm just not convinced. Uh, even if the even if Torch has to say so against uh, bishop to d2, there's no capture on d4. Captures on d2, and the queen recaptures, and the pawn on d4 still stands. I'm not convinced. So my opponent retreats their bishop to e7, and has between the bishop starting on f8, then b4 check, and then back to e7. Simply a waste of time. Uh, Knight f3 to defend the d4 pawn, and if this is an inaccuracy, it's probably because pawn to d5 is strong, right? So we go back to here. White could play d5 straight away, and maybe challenge against this knight, even if we start uh, peppering him with pawn moves. It's uncomfortable for black. I don't think white can find anything material because black will always have f8, but then white will have a ton of pawns on the board, and black will be almost undeveloped. So there's that as an idea. You could do this on, or you could do this. Black could do this earlier to b8, where that knight started in the first place. Knight f3, d6. The pin against the knight on c6 is good. It's good enough. Might not be best, but it's good enough. And then black says, I'm going to break that pin and put my bishop in place to recapture, should you wish to capture the knight. And then black will have recaptured the piece without doubling pawns. So with bishop d7, it wasn't bishop g4 where I'd start feeling good, because then pawn d5, and then if black chooses to play consistently, the pawn captures the knight. So that's like a very optimistic plan for white. Way too optimistic, my friends. I'm sorry to say. Bishop to d7, I think, is a fine move, and I said play d5 anyway. It was the worst move of my game, of this particular game. I don't want to go over tactical complications from this. I'm not exactly sure how that was such a bad move, but Torch and the reviewer say, or one or the other, say that indicate knight e5 highlights the inadequacy of pawn to d5. Some complications. Queen to d7 is not dangerous because the bishop that would make that dangerous has just been captured. And that's, yeah, so this is not all that dangerous for black. I mean, there's in some cases you would see this and also think fork, but who the heck is getting a fork from f6 against the king and the queen in this position? Nobody. It's got to be strongly, strongly, strongly guarded. Anyway, back to reality land. Knight to c3, just a natural developing move. Knight to f6, another natural developing move. Knight d4 here is a little adventurous, so I'm going to be critical of this move a bit. Honestly, here I think I would have been wise to castle first, and then I might still play knight to d4. Did I say 3 before? I meant 4. Knight to d4. I might play it after castling. In review, this was a fine move overall, but white needs the castle. So black, perhaps sensing this, is going to throw pawns at the situation. King is still in the center. It's not a, I don't have a really good, I could go queen side, I could go king side, or I could stay in the center because the queen's blocking in one direction. So that's not a thing. I like this move here, real gutsy move. c5, attacking white's knight on d4, and just in general opening up the position. Now then again, black hasn't castled either. Black has, like I said before, this Houdini situation. You could castle either side or stay put. I capture en passant. So en passant, let's take a time to review this. This is probably the most underpromoting castling. En passant is probably the last. For me, it was the last move. For me, it was the last rule about a chess move that I learned. I learned it myself. I'm not sure this is what sent me to consult book or not. This was the last move that I learned how to play. I think that's true for many chess players. En passant is kind of difficult to describe, but I'll take a stab at it anyway. So we're gonna think as white, given a certain situation with black. The c7 pawn has not yet moved, or any pawn that has not yet moved. Moves forward 2 squares using its 2 square initial move option, and lands on a square on the 5th rank. It must be in this situation, adjacent to a white pawn laterally. The white pawn may play en passant by capturing the c5 pawn even while c6 is vacant, but also by moving to c6. That's it. That's as good as I can do. It's a reasonably complicated rule. Alright, so c5, d takes c5 en passant, b takes c6. And we get this position where white shows willingness to queen a4 pretty much shows white's willingness to trade queens, or just generally make a stronger presence on the queen side. kingside castle, kingside castle. You know, a lot of what's going on in this game is it's not a crazy, you know, wild game. As much as there are, you know, three minor pieces per side, the queens are still on. Each side has, I believe, six pawns, and then there's two rooks to boot. Of course, the kings. And this is not a crazy game. So what do you do when the position doesn't call for something drastic, or recognition of a pattern, or exact calculation down to promotion? Some of it, what you want to do there is manage the position. You want to develop a plan, and this is part of strategy that fits the position you have. Here, well, now here I'm looking at move the dang knight, because then I have two. I have a queen and a knight on the underdefended c6 pawn. So this idea I was gonna lead to doesn't exactly work in this position. But let's say short of pawn to f4 and short of this, you know, whatever, you want to come up with a plan. Something like, overall, I have a lot of presence queenside, and I'm not sure there's much there. I have a queenside majority. However, with the safe king, and given that the outpost that my knight can avail himself on f5 is ready to be availed of, I actually think I can turn this into a kingside attack against black. It'll take one, two, you know. Yeah, then you start thinking more specifics. This queen's not getting there anytime soon, but the knight will be there, and you know, all kinds of things. You also would want to be sure you have a backup plan. Suppose the knight gets kicked right away. Are you going to h6, check, or are you capturing on e7? So there's still, of course, some calculation involved, but you want to develop a plan. If the position is boring, develop a plan. Pawn to f4, knight to g4. So we get our pawn lead. So does our opponent with a shot against the bishop at d2. Queen takes queen, knight takes queen, and we're still even material now with a queenless. It's kind of a queenless middle game that could become a queenless endgame soon enough. I played bishop to e1 just to get out of the way, and I thought this could lead to better defensive tries against a growing and developing black attack on my king side. And after knight to e3 attacking my rook, I was nonetheless correct, as now the bishop plays a part in protecting the rook on f2. And my opponent moved rook to b4. So another thing I want to talk about, yeah, this is some kind of blunder. We don't necessarily know this right away, right? As players, there's no buzzer that goes off. There are not red blinking lights. You know, nobody spells it, you know, in our palm or anything like that. There's not starter fluid smell in the air, or the smell of regular gasoline or oil in the air. You know, we haven't just eaten Go-Gurt. So I'm saying, when you're in the game playing like this, we don't know. If we do, that's probably not. You probably shouldn't be playing that. Yeah, because that's cheating. You know, if somebody else is giving you a signal in a crucial position, that's definitely cheating. Anyway, I didn't cheat, and I got to this position, and I'm glad that I found knight to d6, forking rook and bishop. And when the rook moves, I believe black made it a little bit even worse for him or they self, because now knight takes e4, puts black down a full rook. It was a great game up to this moment, and I also am proud that I seized the moment and made the best move here with white. All these other moves are equal or close to equal, but knight c6 settles the matter. Okay. And now I like to finish games. So I'm going to finish this game against practice, and that will be it for chess tonight, for chess sessions tonight. Not this. Here, I decide to capture the bishop. The traded material is worth more to me than the pawn on a7. And that all, of course, has a lot to do with how much material you had in the first place, as well as, of course, the board and everything else. But I'm going to grab a pawn on d6, and white is doing very well. Sorry. Let's see that even with overwhelming material, forcing checkmate against computer best and computer best play is not always straightforward. It's not always easy. Alright, this I'm gonna see this through to now through this game review, and then sign off, and that will be it for my broadcasting and streaming chess for the night. Okay, quite an accurate game with the completion accurate also before, and not so bad. Not so bad overall. Not so bad. Thank you for watching. Thank you, Gravitrons. I'm more gravity. Have a great night.